So welcome to our podcast, episode number 6.
I think it's like 8.
I think it's 6. I don't keep up with it.
I don't know.
Anyways, I'm your co-host Amir.
I'm Gaurav, man.
And today we have a special guest, Tom Baumann. So Tom Baumann is, so you can say hello, Tom.
Hello, good morning, or evening, or afternoon, or in the middle of the night.
It's all the same.
To give it a little context, Tom Baumann is currently a university professor at UFE, University of Fraser Valley, just locally here in Abbotsford and Chilliwack. They're also in Mission as well. And Tom,
Right?
Tom has, you have a master's degree in plant biology? No, and I don't know what he has a master's
It's
degree.
called plant science.
Plant science.
Plant science.
Plant science has been teaching for close to 40 years.
How long have we known each other?
We've known each other for 9 years.
Yeah, you should know this then.
Oh, I don't know
It's
how long.
horticulture and specialties berries.
Especially berries.
Since I think it was 30 years ago. What decade was 30 years ago? 80s, right? 80s?
80s, yeah.
I think 1988.
That's when you were born.
No, he was born in 94.
Okay.
That's
Anyways,
1988, right?
You've been teaching for decades. You have a lot of experience in agriculture, horticulture, but also what makes you professional and relative to businesses is that you have really good knowledge of the business industry and agriculture business. And that makes you really relative for local businesses within the Fraser Valley. So in my 9 years of knowing you, you've had a big influence on the agriculture industry in regards to how businesses provide a customer experience, regardless if it's what the variety that they grow, how they grow the berries, where they distribute the berries, and that also has to do with how you educate your students as well. And when I went through the teaching program with Tom at UFE, and I did my BBA in agriculture management. So the first 2 years of that was in agriculture, and then also 6 months was in Holland, which you helped set up. But the first 2 years of going through was a lot of Tom's leadership in regards to what to study, what courses to take, how much time and who to pay attention to while during the courses, what teachers were known in the industry and what teachers had a reputation, etc. So there was a lot of guidance from Tom, and that was obviously very helpful. And so our relationship began that first class when you walked in. You said, "Welcome, class. This is fruit production or 101 fruit, and we'll be learning about fruit in essence." And I said, "All right, I like fruit. I grow strawberries, and I think strawberries is what you first touch on in that class."
Absolutely.
Yes, that's one of your first things you touch
It's
on.
the first crop that goes ripe.
That's
in the
right.
year. That's why.
That's right. So I'm sure I missed a lot of things. What else are you known for?
Okay, how much time did we have?
We can
you
have
said?
as long as you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
3-4 hours should be good enough.
I'm ready.
I have taught for a long time. I started actually in the army in Germany.
Oh yeah.
Teaching motorboat driving and maintenance of the machinery, especially the outboards, 75 horsepower Evinrude outboards.
Okay.
Took them completely apart, put them back together, taught all the students. How I got that job was that our superiors said, cross the Rhine River and delivered the troops to the other side safely under fire. So then they pulled me out later out of about 20 people that were driving the boats. They pulled me out and said, "Here, meet the general." And I'm going, "Oh God, what have I done now?" So general puts me there in front of him and says, "You stand right there." "Yes, sir," of course. And then everybody else comes there and says, "You all drive like grandmothers. You all got just killed going across the river. You got to drive like this guy. He just opened the throttle, ran into the other side, everybody got out, and he went back for the next batch. That's the way to do it." And that's how I approach every subject. So what I've done since that teaching, I've done exactly the same thing with go full throttle at a subject, and I've become a part of the industry. I was hired first by Murray Driediger and Horstings to help with the research in the strawberry. Because strawberry was then big time business. It was huge. And you all know the story. In the meantime, strawberries have become totally irrelevant because we can't compete on the processing market anymore worldwide, because we've got Eastern Europe, we've got South America throwing fruit on the market big time. So all we have is a fresh industry that's reasonably small, but very comfortable for us to run at a very high quality. And the same thing's happening now with raspberries. We're down to, from about 9,000 acres, 11,000 acres, we're down to about 2,000 acres now. And the price is just pathetic for our product.
It's crazy.
Mexico, Central South America, very close to us. And it's usually U.S. companies that are in those countries and producing very high quality fruit that's competing with us on that same market. It's very easy to say, oh, they're competing with us, they have the cheap labor. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
They have less regulatory requirements. Yes, they do. And that's why we are on the negative side. Although our youth doesn't want to enter the agriculture industry because it's cold, it's miserable, it's dirty, it's, oh my God, we have to work 16-hour days. Are you kidding me? That's impossible. So looking at the two youngin' ones in front of me here, going like, I'm impressed that we have young people actually wanting to do that and doing it very well. So well done for you guys. And seek the education to run the show.
When I was in that first class with you, there was like 15, 16 people in that class. Like nothing. 9 years ago, when I first took that first class, and I was like, holy, this is completely different than my other courses. Because at that time, I didn't know what degree I wanted to go towards, so I took a couple different types of courses, and agriculture was one of them.
When I went to school, to university in Germany, didn't get any attention whatsoever, but what UFE does very well, do the small classes. However, those 15 have now grown to 50.
Yes.
And the strangest thing is, sitting especially with you guys here, 60% of them are directly from India, and that makes it in a way challenging, and in another way it makes it exciting for me because I can go worldwide with my examples rather than just being local. So I didn't finish my thoughts on blueberries yet, and you know, both of you know how I always stick to the topic. The blueberries came on next, and the blueberries have taken over just about everything now. Here in the Fraser Valley, Vancouver Island, there's blueberry, 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 and blueberry, which in itself is an issue, because we have over 33,000 acres of blueberries now, and our production is, we do good quality production, but our production is fairly low when you compare to other regions, like let's say Oregon, which is sort of the hotbed now, especially with Bernardine Strick being the major supplier of information to that industry. So blueberry, it's all about blueberry now. But then look at you guys. You're also dealing with grapes, which is a berry, of course.
Yeah.
Strawberries and raspberries, of course, not berries, technically speaking. Let's call them berries for now.
They're drupes and they're like keens.
Oh, look at it. He remembers
I learned that from food production.
Well, that's new. I never knew you would do that.
Drooplets and a keens.
Excellent.
That's right.
Excellent. And then we have blackberries, and somebody may say, why do you have blackberries? There are blackberries all over the bush. Yeah. Yes, but most of them are on the roadside. They're actually weeds. They have thorns. The ones that we cultivate usually do not have thorns.
That's right.
Although some varieties do have the thorns. We have other specialty crops such as haskaps. We've got, what are those red things? Goji berries, and a whole bunch of other little ones, but they don't make up the market.
Very small.
Most of the market now, most of the growing is in blueberries, and blueberries.
There's kiwi. We have kiwi here too.
We do have kiwis. It's not been very successful because the California market just takes everything.
Yeah.
So, and we're marginal, except with global warming, global climate change, we're doing better and better and better at exotic crops. We're growing all sorts of things.
Very interesting. Yeah.
So I expect we will be growing citrus, especially on Vancouver Island. We actually grow commercially citrus already. And I think the shores here, we will also get that. But thinking back to our winter this year, February 2019, we are looking at something that we would never have citrus survive out in the Chilliwack, Abbotsford area, but down at the seashore for sure. And there are other regions when you go down the seashore, Washington, Oregon, California, of course they can grow a lot of different things too. So the next important thing for our industry is how do we get the information to the growers? And there's a whole industry that has developed around it. Some of it is run by the supply industry that gives overview of what to use and then specific recommendations. This much fertilizer, this much that, and this much that. We've developed over time, because of consumer demands, we've developed organic supply chains to produce organic crops as well. And about 10, 11 years ago, just when you went to university, all of a sudden spotted wing Drosophila, in future I'll refer to it as SWD, has come about, which has screwed us up completely.
In layman terms, you got to describe what spotted wing Drosophila is.
Spotted wing Drosophila, maybe I'll try to explain it to you, that'll work, if you're a layman. So, spotted wing Drosophila is a vinegar fly technically, but let's call it a fruit fly. So it goes to fruit. And as opposed to the regular fruit flies that go on fruit that is overripe, starting to rot, which is fine, we can cope with that. That thing that came to us from Japan via Hawaii, via California, and that took only 2 years to do that entire process. All of a sudden we had it everywhere. That thing goes in underdeveloped fruit. So it goes into the green, ripening pink fruit, and by the time we harvest it, there are already these tiny little white maggots wiggling at us.
Inside the fruit.
Inside the fruit, which is absolutely gross. When you look at the fresh market, when you look at yogurt, for instance, you don't want maggots floating on the top of your yogurt if fruit has been added to it. So there's a zero tolerance for that from the consumer. There's nothing wrong with it. You can eat a ton of those.
Yeah, of course.
I call it a protein enhanced.
A lot of consumers have. They just don't know it. I guarantee a lot of consumers have ate it. They just don't know it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
But if somebody sees it, people will freak.
Yeah,
because
that's right.
they don't know what it is, and that's why it's good you made me explain it. It's an overwhelming thing that has wrecked our what I call intense integrated pest management. We were almost gone completely away from any kind of insecticidal sprays.
Yeah.
So in the industry, what we use is we use herbicides to get rid of the weeds. That doesn't influence the fruit, doesn't influence the plant, etc. If it's done properly, no big deal. And then we have fungicides. If it rains like it is right now, the blooms are open for blueberries and for strawberries. And now we have rain coming. If we do not protect our flowers, you should actually be in the tractor doing that right now. Instead of sitting here because it's nice and clear outside and not very windy.
Today, it's on my schedule for today.
So we need to protect the flowers so the primary infection doesn't happen. This is at bloom time. This is when the infection happens, not later. If you protect it well during the bloom, no big deal. And we have very good chemicals available to us now that don't influence the bees, that don't influence, which is very important, of course, because we want to preserve our bees, otherwise there's no fruit. We also have to protect the environment with those and with the chemicals, any kind of sprays, stay away from the watercourse, blah, 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 blah. And that's where our rules here in Canada are extremely strict. And I know the farmers complain about it all the time, but we have very strict rules similar to those that we see in Europe.
That's right.
Whereas other countries, including the US, they don't have the stricter rules that we do. And especially some countries that we're importing from. And this is what really irks me big time. They can import the fruit having used chemicals that we can't in our industry, and that's unfair to our farmers. That will be brought in, and nobody even checks for it. Yes, there are
customers just don't
checks.
know.
No, customers don't know.
No
that
clue.
kind of stuff. And that's partially our fault that we do not educate people. So right now, right here, we've just done it.
That's right. We are
Yeah.
educating. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly. So this is the number one reason why I wanted to bring you on here and talk to us, is because we're coming into the time of year when people are going to want to know, how are your strawberries grown? Okay. We focus a lot of our efforts in regards to our revenue that comes in at Man Farms on strawberry production. People just have some sort of affiliation that strawberries means summer. So when summer comes around, we see that strawberry, it's time to go out and do some berry picking and look at strawberries and take a bite out of it. And obviously, strawberries are sexy, they taste good, it's just nice,
Strawberries are sexy.
Of course they are. Of course. They have that. So,
It was actually in history, it was called the love apple.
the love apple.
Yeah, it was actually the strawberry because it came in first, and you gave it to your sweetheart, etc.
Uh-huh.
So it was actually quite sexy in history, and we kind of lost that connection, unfortunately.
Well, we're bringing it back.
Yeah.
Right now,
you
for the
personally,
education.
you
Yeah,
personally,
100%.
yeah.
That's best marketing.
So talking to you, you brought up a couple more main points, right? So SWD. When you bring up SWD, I know right away you're talking about pesticides and insecticides mainly, and then how we do crop control, and then that relating to the customers. They're totally unaware of those sides of the spectrum. Also, organic. Why is organic important? What's going on? And the second thing is IPM as a whole. What do people don't know about IPM, and why is organic such a big component in conventional, and then where should we be? Because like from my perspective, people look at, is this organic or not organic? And that's all they ask, right? But there's other spectrums to the fruit. There's organic, there's people who don't know how to farm, and there's people who are sustainable in the middle, who are using a mix of organic methods, who are using a mix of really, who are using non-organic sprays, and they all of a sudden have more tools in their tool belt to go out and control, which are then, it's reducing resistance because they're not applying the same pesticide over and over again. They're controlling their pesticides at a lower threshold or at the right threshold, so they're not building up pest populations. They're going out and because they're applying, it's applying less, it's a negative impact. It's less of a negative impact for the environment, also for the humans. And this is the main concept that people aren't able to grasp, is that organic farmers have pesticides. They apply pesticides. Like, get that straight, people. Organic people have pesticides.
Oh my God, I didn't know about that.
That's literally it. Organic
People don't believe
Yeah,
that.
people don't believe that.
No, people will not believe that, and some of those chemicals are just as harsh as other chemicals that we use, and actually some of them are worse on the environment than the ones we use. Did you know that some of the fruit that we eat, some of the vegetables that we eat, are highly cancer-causing?
What?
Well, all of a sudden, it's very quiet in this room. Yes, they are. But on the other hand, the very same fruit and vegetable is cancer preventing. So it just depends which chemicals you look at. If you want to be a real dolt and you want to put something down, you select just the bad chemicals that are present in a specific fruit, vegetable, and you don't concentrate on the good things that are in it that prevent those chemicals to actually be expressed. So in the overall scheme, fruits and vegetables eaten regularly, and the kind of food guide says that too, are very helpful to you. You don't get fat from them, except if you eat avocados, and if you eat lots of chocolate with it, like I do. But you also get your vitamins, you get your minerals, you get all sorts of, let's say, most of the fruit has ellagic acid in it, which has an antiviral component to it, and which is fine. I wish I had some fresh fruit available in the wintertime that is local, never mind from abroad, because this ellagic acid could potentially be suppressing those darn flu bugs, because it has antiviral properties, and those happen to be viruses. But going back to what you just asked me, to go into the different, you said spectra of the same, actually you said spectrums, but never mind. We went to the different expressions of how we do our husbandry of the farm. And husbandry in this instant means, how do we grow?
That's right.
So
that's it.
How do we grow? We have a fantastic opportunity these days, and we're grabbing that by the lapel and pull it in and work with it. We've always had this consumer come to us and say, you need to grow organic, like people in the cave ages grew. People in Cuba grow because they have no access to chemicals, or didn't used to, thanks to the US embargo. That's how we should be doing this, all totally organic. Right? In the 50s, in the 60s, throughout the Green Revolution, we ramped up our food production thanks to chemicals 100 and 1,000-fold. So now people asked us, by the time the 70s, 80s, and the 90s rolled around, people asked us, let's go back to that time prior to the chemicals, because those chemicals are bad.
Sure.
And yes, some of the chemicals have been found retroactively to be less than beneficial to the environment. Perhaps not to us, you know. So now we're looking at going as green and as sustainable, and sustainable is a big word these days, and organic. However, there's one word that is even more powerful these days that the consumers are looking for than organic. Organic has been much abused because you grew your crop, you called it organic, and that was the end of it. Lots of fun, right? So everybody grew, sprayed this, that, and the other, called the crop organic, and the consumers were perfectly happy. They didn't know about the sprays. They were doing organic. There was no regulation. In the US and in Canada now, there's legislation that says thou shalt not call it organic unless it's certified organic. And what that means is we actually have a body that looks after that, and we have several of these certifying bodies here in Canada and in the US that say, okay, we're coming in randomly. We're going to check you. You always have to turn around and look over your shoulder with whatever you're doing, because we will make sure you adhere to the code that you just signed up for, to not use those particular chemicals, to not use genetically altered material, like GMOs. You do not do this, that, and the other. Give you an example. About 20 years ago, I was involved in telling somebody how to put a vineyard in the U.S. And one of the things was, I said, well, we need cedar posts because they rot less, because you want to be organic, and that's an organic thing to do. Oh no, we can use, under certification, we can use chemically treated
Pressure-treated
posts with arsenic and also zinc and everything else under the sun. Everything else I don't even want to be close to, because I think I'm going to die from it. So that was not good certification. We now have the law in place, so if you go shopping as a consumer, what you can do is you can ask to see the letter of certification or the certificate of being organic, certified organic. And if people don't want to show you that or don't have it, they're not organic, and they're not allowed to use the word organic. It's really good that this came in, because now there's actually a standard that the consumers can trust.
Of course.
And that has changed things big time. Organic growers can use fertilizers, just about all the fertilizers that we use in regular commercial growing. Conventional, it's called, generally, conventionally. So we now look at the difference between organic and conventional getting smaller and smaller and smaller as the conventional side is incorporating, and you said that a little while ago, you said very clearly that we're using some of the organic ways of growing.
Tools.
Yes, of course. You don't want to wreck your soil.
Of course not.
You don't want to wreck your plants. You don't want to poison the consumer. You don't want to do this, that, and the other.
Exactly.
You want to have your water to flow off, if any of it flows off, just as clean. You don't want to contaminate the underground.
For sure.
You want to do this. You're the next generation of your parents. So you're third generation now, farmers, which means the previous generation haven't wrecked the soil, haven't wrecked your business, and you are not going to do that either. In fact, you're doing it better and better and better. And this is where my hope is, that organic and conventional will merge eventually. There will be a toolbox that's greater than what we have now for organic production. For instance, with SWD, the spotted wing Drosophila, that noxious fruit fly, we now have just about nothing. There are 2 chemicals we can use in organic production, but it doesn't work very well.
No.
So we do have, in conventional, we do have chemicals that are able to
suppress or control.
To do that, control the insect.
That's right.
And we must control the insect.
That's right.
Because if you get caught at the processing plant, at the packing plant, having these at a certain rate, which means greater than 0 in your fruit, you'll be rejected. The fruit will be thrown out.
But I understand. That's a cool part, right? Your fruit will be thrown out.
So what I'm hoping for
is
that we do what you call IPM, that we still have a little bit left over, another tool in the toolbox of the organic production, and be able to control that too.
So, but the thing is this: if your fruit is being thrown out, so what does that mean? The farmer doesn't get paid, right? But on top of that, that means that acreage that was set out in the world to feed people is not sustainable. That all those inputs that a farmer put into that 1 acreage produce this fruit, which is now going in the trash or thrown out or different grade or whatever. It's not feeding that specific target market that they tended to feed. Correct?
You got it.
Right? And how is that a sustainable way of farming?
It is not.
Exactly.
And if we go further to that, if we today want to produce all of our food organically, at least in the Western world, there will be no more food. Gaurav, you had some comments. I'm not sure why you're waving your hands.
What I always say to consumers, especially at farmers markets, is that we're spoiled. We're spoiled to have organic food because we can afford it. But the thing with organic food, you're not producing as much fruit.
That's right.
Whereas if you go
vegetables.
Exactly,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
If you go to the third world countries, using organic and using conventional and GMOs, you can feed more people at the end of the day, right?
And we can make people live healthier, for instance, with the GMO rice that has vitamins added to it naturally by changing one tiny little gene.
Yeah.
So how can we say to these people, well, we're not doing this anymore, you eat the white rice and you die, or you live sickly.
Yeah.
And your lifetime goes from a potential of 70 years to a potential of 22 years or less. So that's kind of rude, right? Isn't it? And for us, what if we produced all of our food not conventionally anymore, but we produce it mostly
organic,
as we do now, that smallest portion of all, organically, and the food prices ratchet up by, let's say, 50. Let's just say 50%. Never mind double, which is probably closer to the truth.
Yeah, that is.
But let's say 50%. Go to the markets and compare. yourselves, and then you find out how much more it costs.
Yeah.
So, what are we now saying to the poor people, to the people that cannot afford buying this? And what if somebody in Yaletown goes and buys organic food all the time and feels really good about it? They're all thin, they're working out all the time. What does that say to the person that's on the street and living in a tent and cannot afford this stuff? What are you doing there? Are you saying you're less than me? So this is what really irks me here in this, because organic production, because of the potential of loss, because of extra labor, because of extra this, that, and the other, will necessarily cost more. Now, I've got a great story for you guys.
But those are facts, though.
Well,
let's touch
that's
on that real quick.
100%.
It's a
Yeah,
fact.
100%.
So like I don't know what the percentage here is, okay? But if you go say there's three. Let's go back to that spectrum. There's a conventional farmer, hardcore conventional farmer. He's out there spraying based off of PHIs, pre-harvest intervals, and he's spraying as often as he can to make sure that he has zero pest presence inside his field, right? You could say maybe he's going to retain, I don't know, 90% of his crop. Okay, just say.
That's what I always calculate, about 10% losses in conventional production.
Sure, okay?
Okay.
Then you have somebody on the organic side of things, right? Which is farming purely certified organic. He's growing the same amount of land, right? He's a next door neighbor, and he can only grow organically, and he has pests present in his field. He has weeds present, so pests meaning weeds, bugs, funguses, anything that's inhibiting the growth of that crop, right?
Yeah.
Okay? And then you could say, I don't know, what do you think, how much of his crop that he's yielding? Viable crop.
On the fully organic, certified organic side, it's anywhere from 99% to 0. What does that give you an average?
50%.
About 50-60%.
Yeah.
So he's losing another 30-40%, okay?
Because you could actually lose an entire crop. 100%.
Oh, 100%. I've had, so for example, strawberries, I've had, so let me just continue on this. Somebody like us, which is on the sustainable side of things, I consider myself sustainable in regards to how we're farming. We use trickle irrigation. We're out there. These are a lot of things that all farmers use.
So you save water.
So we save water, right? A lot of things that all these farmers use, but we make it a mandatory thing for us to do. We use trickle irrigation. We use sprays with as low as pre-harvest intervals as possible. We go out there and we spray as less as possible. We always alternate the group of pesticides that we're spraying. Groups meaning the mode of action of each pesticide and how it functions. For example, if you have the spotted fig Drosophila and you have 5 different pesticides, if you're spraying the same pesticide over and over again, say it's pesticide A over and over again, it builds resistance. But if you're alternating which pesticide you're using, so and they're all 5 different groups, and
it's like a vaccine.
Exactly, it's not acting the same way. It's like taking a Tylenol.
Yeah.
It's not working the same way, and then that spotted wing Drosophila pest is not getting used to that pesticide, and because of that, you're able to effectively control it over and over and over again because you're using it in different ways, right? Where organic farmers, they only have maybe 1 or 2 different types of controls, and because of that, they're applying the same pesticide over and over again. They're building up resistance. Then they have to spray more often, right? Spraying more often obviously increases prices. Yeah. It's worse for the environment. It's worse for human health, right? Mm-hmm. Secondly, they have to spray more of that same chemical, which is not legally allowed. You're supposed to only spray it within you only have a margin of what you spray. Yeah. But I know some farmers are spraying more than the limit.
Well,
right?
let's just eliminate farmers that don't adhere to the rules.
So okay, I understand.
Because that doesn't make any sense in the first place.
Exactly.
Whether it's organic or non-organic doesn't matter to me.
Totally.
That's useless and that's dangerous.
100%.
And that's very, very few people that will try this maybe once. And if they get burned, oh boy, are they in big trouble.
Yeah.
Let me give you the perfect example. And this is what I'm saying.
No, but we're sustainable. Let me finish that off.
Yeah.
So we're sustainable. We lose another 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
Okay? But we are just as healthy as organic farmers in my eyes because we're following PHIs like every other farmer. PHIs mean the pre-harvest interval. How much time you have to wait before you go out and harvest the crop. We're following REIs, re-entry intervals. That means how much time you have to wait until you go into the crop and expose yourself to that exposure.
As a worker,
as a farmer, as you're picking, etc. Okay, And so, because we're following those things, which have been deemed by the government bodies over like 10 years of testing a pesticide, there's very little or zero residues left on that crop, okay? And then on top of that, we're spraying less often because we're using different types of tools to do the same job, whereas organic farmers have to use the same tools over and over again.
Which means you increased your toolbox, and this is where we come to integrated pest management, where we're integrating everything we possibly can do to limit what I call the last resort, which is the chemicals. So we're using, first of all, mechanical means, like the weeds. You can trash the weeds between the rows by equipment. Even within the rows, there's this, there's a weeding robot coming out.
That's right,
and
yeah,
this and that and whatever.
We do that, we cultivate.
Cultivation.
We cultivate or
yes.
rotivate, yeah.
Yeah.
And even hand hoeing, if you're organic, you have to do hand hoeing, but then this costs you a fortune because of human labor.
That's right.
That's somebody that doesn't really want to do this.
That's step one, physical.
And after physical has been exhausted, you're doing all of these good things. So you keep pests under control. You keep, like with pests again, fungi, bacteria, viruses,
insects,
any of those, and then the insects and the weeds. So we always lump those together. So that helps in keeping certain things under control. That's about 90% of the stuff that we need to do.
Yeah.
And then another 9.9% is that we use beneficial insects. We actually purchase them in, put them out into our fields or in the orchards, and they do the work for us by either parasitizing or eating the bad insects. And there's an issue with that, and that again relates to the consumer not having enough knowledge. You have this little spider web in the calyx side, in the flower side of the blueberry, for instance. People go crazy about that and go like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. The spiders are actually positive. All you have to do is just swish them and it's gone, or eat it too. It's very beneficial, yet people freak. Has anybody ever seen, maybe somebody who's listening now, have you ever seen the larva of a ladybug? It looks like a little, very colorful black and orange striped alligator walking around. And people freak on me all the time, phone me up, what is this? And I'm going, this is the most wonderful thing you can possibly have. Because it's eating all the aphids and all the other bad bugs.
It's a good environment for
it. This is really good stuff. So we need to have more consumer awareness of that stuff. So if we find some of those beneficial insects there, it's not a bad thing. It's like you should have a big smile on your face, because that's a good thing.
That's right.
That shows you that we didn't use chemicals, but we actually used the good bugs. So that's the second step. So we did first the physical, then the biological, and now we're getting to the last resort. We go into chemical. And with the chemicals, we go use chemicals that are registered for organic production, soft chemicals beyond that, and then only when we absolutely have to, and we can do spot treatments, and rather than doing the whole field, only the hot spots, because we walk the fields, we drive the fields, we check whether we have something. In the good old days, in the 60s and the 70s, you sprayed according to what day it was on the calendar. Now, we do the applications only if we must.
Scouting.
And through scouting, we go through the fields, which is fantastic. So, and here's my great story, and this is the most wonderful thing that happened to me at a conference down in Monterey, California. I'm at the conference, and it's about blackberries and raspberries. Sitting in there, I'm listening to these talks, and I don't know, it was fate that got me into the organic session. I did never attend an organic session. So I walked into that and I sat down. And first I had some hippie with curly hair giving a talk on organic production, and I just about got up and left because that was about as bad as I've ever heard it. And that's that lifestyle organic.
Oh yeah.
Kind of, let's not do anything. Let's let Mother Nature take care of everything.
Sure.
That was bad. Then came this older fellow on from Washington State, and he gave a similar talk. And most of it had absolutely no scientific grounding. And I was just horrified. And I actually got up and I was ready to leave. They walked onto the stage and they were introduced, and I'm going, well, I'll listen to one more. And I sat down. And a good thing I did sit down, because they had several thousand acres under production, under strict organically certified production. They were a commercial outfit. They were cleanly shaven, dressed, and everything else. They represented a big, huge company. And they told everybody how this can be done in a commercial fashion. And what they do, sometimes a crop just would die, so they take it out of organic and sell it as conventionally produced, which I like this concept.
Wow.
So there is a merging of the regular
That's
farming
crazy.
and the organic farming. And when these guys were done, we had a break. I walked up to them, shook their hands, and I said, "What's going on?" I'm going, "The best ever talk I heard, best ever representation on organic production. You finally made me a believer in organic production." Because that's the way it should be done.
That's insane.
It shouldn't be a lifestyle,
No.
but it should be one other way of
Us to
producing.
feed the world. Yeah.
And this is what you guys here strive for also.
That's it. That's essentially what we do. We use majority organic methods. Then a time comes, okay, the soft pesticides aren't working. We have to make a call. Are we interested in losing this 3 acres of strawberries, or are we interested in growing a viable crop and producing that and then selling it to our customers?
And
you
as
know?
you said earlier, are you interested in shutting down the farm market for 3 weeks because you don't have a crop and lose every single customer?
Yeah, what?
Because they're not going to come back.
No, and it's not like that. Like, you know, it's very interesting that you said this couple or this 2 guys were able to grow thousands of acres.
By the way, they were not a couple.
Sorry, they were just a couple of guys. But then I don't think that we would be able to initially say, okay, these are one plot of land. Wait, we can take this and we can see how far it goes, and if we have to spray, it'll go conventional. But then we'll still be certified organic because we'll have this other portion of land. Because then with that, you have to have flexibility.
Yeah.
You have to have land availability and be able to, you know, do these things, which comes with scalable. When you have more areas to do these things, you know.
And what we just talked about is a very, very positive message.
Yes.
This is about as good as it gets, and we're at this point where we're merging this, and that's why organic is becoming less and less of a selling point in itself, because the conventional industry is encroaching further and further toward that goal of the organic production. But the word, and I told you there was another way of marketing these days that is more important than organic or conventional or anything else, that you know you're a farmer. It's local. That's the big thing these days. People want to know that you have a local farm. That's why you guys here at Man Farms, you are so successful, because people can come in and shake your hand and ask you questions and say, man, this is good, or why is the crop not so plentiful this year? The prices are higher. 100%. You can explain it. You're on TV, you're on radio, you're on podcasts, you're on everywhere else, and you're explaining things. And this is what we must do constantly, update the consumers what's going on, so that people that don't know anything about it, when they start talking, they're cut off. Because people don't want to listen to them. And there are a lot of people that talk from the side of their mouth because they really don't have the education. I'm sure they have good intentions, but it sure comes out the wrong way.
No, of course.
And what I'm looking for more than anybody else, I'm looking for the scientific background of everything. If this is
facts,
if the facts are based on bullshit, it doesn't do anything for me.
Of course.
If the facts are there and they're grounded on studies, they're grounded on logic, I can live with it. And then maybe I'll do a little experiment in figuring out if they're actually talking about the right thing. And in the meantime, we're keeping on as industries. We have organizations where our industry comes together and moves forward, not just the marketing, but also on the science of the things, together with the universities, with the extension services, both in the US and Canada, where we have, for instance, the BC Strawberry Growers Association. They hired me. That was my first job. And the BC Raspberry Growers Association existed. Now they do the lobbying, but what we have as an organization is Raspberry Industry Development Council. And then we have the BC Blueberry Council. And the similar organizations exist in Washington, Oregon, and California, and everywhere else. And we actually work together. Here in the West Coast, we work together like we're one region with the US growers. And this is where we make progress. When SWD first showed up, all together in our regions, we put several $1 million into the research, how we can combat that. And we may eventually find something that doesn't require any kind of pesticides anymore for the SWD. We're on our way of doing that. I'm actually quite positive that we will. But in the meantime, we got to save our crops. We want to make sure our food is safe, of course. And I'm very positive about Canadian food, but not so much about food that comes from other regions. Yeah. Because I know our rules.
For sure. No, it's really positive to hear that you're seeing examples of how people are working in harmony with organic and conventional. And especially some farmers are providing a certified organic option. But at that point where they need to make that call, they are then going conventional. Right?
There was a push. I would say it's now probably 22, 25 years ago, where one of the researchers at the Agassiz Research Station of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, the equivalent of the USDA in the US, made a proposal for what he called the green print. Instead of having a blueprint for a house or a shed or whatever, you have a green print, and the green print lays out how we can all, organic, non-organic, integrated pest management, no spray or whatever you call yourself, where we can all plot toward a scheme that we almost are there right now. I wish we would have done it back then already, and call this the green print, lay out where we want to be in the future and how to get there. And we've done it. It never got any traction with anybody, but it happened anyway, because the consumers are demanding that we do it, and we have to respond. We don't have to respond to hype and to somebody that sits literally in their mother's basement and goes and says nasty things about everything. Is really negative, but we have to respond to reasonable demands.
Do you so another different topic? Do you think that education is important? Do you think post-secondary education is important for people to do?
Is what?
Post-secondary education is important.
Coming from
university you're in university.
You'll be quite surprised to hear my answer to that.
I'm interested because I never asked you this question outright.
You'll be quite surprised to hear that. When somebody has a PhD, what does that mean?
They're a doctor.
They've done a lot of studying.
That's right.
Possibly book studies and this and that. They've done some research for their thesis, etc., etc. Does that mean it's applicable to the industry?
No.
Doesn't matter.
It may or may not.
Yeah.
And I have, throughout my career, made it something very special that I work with the industry at all times. And if there's something that I want to investigate that has absolutely no bearing in the industry, I don't do it, because that becomes useless to the industry. There are some research institutions that will do basic research to find out some of the basics that I use in my research that people like me use in our hands-on research and working with the farmers. I've done every single research project together with either farmers themselves or with the industry groups. And if people can't do that, I was invited 32 years ago to attend a faculty meeting at UBC as a graduate student. And I went to the faculty meeting. Man, was I ever intimidated by all those professors sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm one myself. I guess I'm intimidating too.
Well, I was intimidated at the one that we sat down
See?
with all those, all of you guys from UFE, and when you had that discussion, and I represented the grads that went to
It's
all
scary, right?
It was, of course.
So I sat in there and I said to the faculty, the department head put me up to this, and I said to the faculty, you must work with the growers associations. If you're sitting in your ivory tower, you do your research back there with absolutely no connection to the industry. You don't even know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And the department head was extremely thrilled with me for doing that. He was the dean at that time, not just the department head, but he was the dean. And he drove me back after the faculty meeting, drove me back to do my own schooling again. And he said, did you notice they were all not listening? Well, they're all gone now. They're all either retired or they didn't keep on teaching and doing research because their research was irrelevant. New people have taken over, mostly younger people, and they're doing it. They're connecting with the industry. And that's the same at UFE. I'm trying in our department, if somebody doesn't do research that's immediately relevant to industry, I discourage them as much as possible or help them to get to the point where it makes a difference. If you talk with industry about some of that esoteric research that goes on, they will roll their eyes. We have this fantastic outlet, and every state in the U.S. and every single province in British Columbia and in Canada has that too. We've got a show where we teach the farmers what's new, and we call that the Lower Mainland Horticulture Improvement Association Annual Grower Short Course. That's a mouthful. So we all gather together. There are 800 farmers there, and they're getting in different rooms. They're getting taught what's new, and they speak themselves. This is also a rather new kind of development that the farmers teach farmers from their experience, and it's all hands-on. And this is how we disseminate that. I bring my students to it, and this is the way this should be done. And we need to do more of that.
Collaboration.
If you go further, we need to do more of that with the consumers too.
So are you saying that post-secondary university is applicable as long as that you are focusing your time on something which is meaningful for the industry you're focusing on?
Correct, and that's for the professors, the employees, etc. But now the last point is, and this is I think where your question originally went, is what about for me studying?
That's right.
Do I need an education? First of all, we can all agree you need an education. You need to have grade 12, of course.
Sure.
And you should go further. If it's a certificate of some kind of 9 months or a year or something like that, you have your welding certificate, you've got your mechanics, you've got your this, that, and the other. By the way, this is where there are going to be great jobs as I'm retiring and I sit on the money. And there are a lot of people that have those skills as electrician, as plumber, etc. I'm in need of that because I can't do this. I'm dumb when it comes to that. I know my agriculture, but not that. So there are great jobs there.
Just building boats.
But let's just say in agriculture, do we need more people that are educated at a higher level, at the university level, that have done research? People that have done 1-year certificate, a 2-year diploma, or a 4-year degree, or then even a master's degree after that, or a PhD? Yes, yes, and yes. Does it have to be sticky, formal, have to be in a brick building? No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
We can nowadays, when somebody enters university for, let's say, a 6-year, 7-year, even 10-year term, which I did about 11 years at university until I had my final degree and be done, both in Germany and in British Columbia. So when somebody comes in, the job that they're going to have hasn't even been made yet. everything revolves so fast. We don't even know what we're teaching them for.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So we have to be very innovative. We have to be way ahead of the industry, way ahead didactically on the teaching, how we teach these people. And especially in agriculture, it's my privilege to work with an industry that's very hands-on. We have food all the time. In the classes, I bring food all the time. The students bring food. We create food.
Mm-hmm.
It's spectacular when we can do this and can
for
show
sure.
people we're growing. Right now we're growing papayas. We've just had our first 1.5 pounds of coffee that we made in the greenhouses, of course. But maybe that's a thing of the future, that we can grow everything local without that carbon footprint that we're so worried about, and not shipping it by airplane from Timbuktu, literally, to us over here. That would be more dates from Timbuktu, but never mind, we can grow dates here too. Is it reasonable to do that? Sometimes I say, no, this costs us way too much. Then one of those papayas is $50. But if you want the right papaya, you'd pay $50.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that we get here, because it has to travel so long, just doesn't have the flavor as if you picked it right off the bush or whatever. So when we do the education right, we do online, we do distance education, we send people to other countries, such as you went, and for your business degree and for running your own business here, being in Holland for a year was, you came back a changed man.
Of course.
Yeah.
It was spectacular to see the change in all four of you that went, because you went to Eastern Europe, you went to Western Europe.
Of course, yeah. You
went
travel,
to
you expose
Italy,
yourself to new
etc.,
perspectives.
etc. Europe, going from here, if you drove from here to Toronto, you can visit every single European country in that same time frame and the same distance, and that's what you did.
Oh, that's true.
And that was so spectacular. Not so much going to the university,
yes, exactly,
but being exposed 100%. To a different culture or different cultures, and that I can only wish for, that everybody does that.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a different perspective,
100%.
and then when they're asked to make a comparison between this, that, and the other growing technique, they will have a vast pool of knowledge to pull from, rather than something they just read in the headline from one of the Huffington Post or the Yahoo or whatever other sources of maybe news.
I think the education is. What do you think, Gaurav?
Education's good. You can do anything you do in university. You can use Google or YouTube. Right?
No, for sure.
The difference is you're exposing yourself to professors and different students that you can collab with, right? You can also do that over Google and YouTube.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing for me for university was I got to talk to professors and build those relationships, and those are benefiting me now.
Yeah.
Versus other students will just study, and they don't really collaborate, you know. And also university, I feel like it teaches you discipline, right? Because you have to do these things on time. Get things done.
Depends what kind of professor you have.
No, for sure, 100%, right? And
I think somebody could say that they're disciplined, right, and they still don't need those things. I think someone could say that they're a good networker, and none of those things matter,
100%.
right? But I do think that from a perspective of someone that goes through a 4-year program and that focuses on a specific industry, say it's for business perspective, right?
Yeah.
You are exposed to all of the boundaries of a business. You know, all of the areas of business within that 4-year period
true.
that you're gonna learn over those next 40 years.
That's true.
You know, of being in your own business, but you're exposed to it already.
Yeah.
So because of that, you have like, oh yeah, I think I learned that this class. Oh yeah, I remember this. Oh, I think I know a bit about this. You already know it when those things come in and approach you in your real life.
Yeah.
And so then you already have some sort of foundation to kind of stand on.
Yeah.
And somewhere to kind of already look, and it gives you a bit of like insight, you know, into the problems you're gonna have on a day-to-day basis. Because like
100%.
now, even in our business, when like economics comes up, like I remember back to that 2 economic classes that I took because I took a managerial degree, right?
Yeah.
And like those things matter because, to be honest, like no one really needs to know if you're a manager or like a high-level CEO. You don't really need to know how all the accounting works. You don't really need to
No, not at
know
all.
exactly how the economics work in a depth detail, but you need to understand the gist of it. You have to understand how it works on a whole
You can't just avoid
macro perspective. You
Yeah.
can't avoid it.
Yeah.
And either that you're going to learn that from your university education and take it in and soak it in and have already in your brain and access it, or you're going to learn it on your day-to-day basis and you're going to have to spend your time to learn it.
100%.
I had the pleasure of working with professors like Dr. George Eaton, who taught me you're allowed to make mistakes. Try everything
Yeah.
out here at university. Make your mistakes now, so you don't make them later
that's
when
a
it
good
really
100%.
counts.
100%.
Yeah.
And in term papers, in exams, in class, asking stupid questions. Yes, there are stupid
Yeah.
questions,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they all need to be asked, because what is a stupid question to me may not be a stupid question
That's
to
right.
you or anybody else.
100%.
And that's why they all need to be asked, and that's why generally we're supposed to say there is no stupid question. Boy, believe me, there are stupid questions. But they all need to be asked, because that is where people make mistakes. And if they ask that question, get a decent answer back, they will never make that mistake
That's
again.
right.
And
true.
that is what this is. It's the stimulation of your brain that you call it collaborations, you call it networking, whatever you want to. Social media is fine, but the
Yeah.
vagaries of social media, the propagation of nonsense is tremendous
Yeah.
on the social media side. Look at, we could say anything here that we wanted to, and some people may actually take it serious.
That's right.
And that's why here in this blog we're trying to be very careful what we say and make sure it's based on reality
Yeah.
and not some sort of conjecture,
Sure.
wild guesses.
Yeah.
And this is what you do at university. You figure out, okay, this is what I think this is. What could be the other side? And that's another student takes that. And then you discuss it. And the professor is supposed to guide that conversation. That's all a professor does.
Yeah.
The professor, in the end, is not a specialist about everything.
That's
That's
right.
impossible.
That's
Nobody can
true.
do that. But the professor has, again, like you said, the CEO has that high level view and is able to bring that conversation to a level where it makes sense, where everybody can grow. And that's what the post-secondary education is all about.
Yeah.
And if we have examples of somebody making like $1 zillion and they didn't go to school, that was fine then. Try that now.
Yeah,
It's
no,
very,
yeah.
very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get your first job without an education.
Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur now, Tom, so I think a lot of people would
100%.
disagree with you. They'd say that they could just go through, because that's what we're hearing, right? On social media, etc., and some of our friend circle, like school's pointless, because a lot of our friends, or people that are younger than me, or people that I did go through to high school with, they were just put through university because their parents wanted them to go to university. And so then they went through three different, criminology, business, and what else was it?
Accounting.
Accounting, yeah.
HR.
But it's criminology and business is mostly what people did, marketing maybe. But that's literally just because their parents put them through.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I understand that, and I get that all the time too. If you do not need a post-secondary
Yeah.
education if you're incredibly self-motivated and disciplined. You can do it yourself. Who is? Very few people.
Yeah.
Will everybody get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and by 7 o'clock sit there and do an 8-hour, 12-hour, 14-hour learning day
No.
for 5-6 days a week?
No.
No. And that's what the structure of the university education will help you out.
That's right.
To be in that. And university is not for everybody.
No, it's not.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not. There are people that are perfectly happy to do jobs that are repetitive and what usually people call menial. I don't call them menial because everybody has something that they're good at. And people can do those jobs. I wouldn't want to do those jobs. There are a lot of jobs I see on a daily basis. Like I drive through a construction zone and somebody's holding that sign up. I couldn't do that. I'm glad for them to have a job,
Of course.
but I couldn't do that job. I'd
Yeah.
get bored after about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it depends who you are. And I was bored throughout school, all the way from kindergarten to postgraduate work.
Yeah.
I was bored all the time because I was way ahead of the instructors / professors. But you know, it was still good for me to be in there.
Yeah,
And by the way, being in the army for 15 months, having to go there, and I was also very bored there, and I was just horrified of how much stupidity exists. It was a good experience in the end because I learned a whole bunch of things. Plus, I was exposed to the other side of teaching where nobody wants to learn anything, and you still teach people. And I became an officer within the 15 months, which is unusual, but I actually was put in a teaching position, and a hands-on teaching position. And this is where I discovered I'm actually good for that. So it was a good thing that I did that. On my own, I would have never discovered that. I'm a total introvert, believe it or not. And that being exposed to all of these things made me being able to function as an extrovert, although I'm an introvert.
Yeah. I just want to ask.
Go ahead.
Going back to organic and conventional, you mentioned that you use physical, biological, and chemical. You mentioned on the physical side of things, you have to have more labor to do your agriculture, per se, and that affects GDP because you're paying foreign workers versus because now less and less local workers want to work in agriculture, which you touched on, because people from India, Mexico, and
Kenya, everywhere,
others, they're working in agriculture now. Also with everybody losing raspberries and strawberries, you're going to Mexico, you're going to all these places, and that's affecting GDP, right? And then
we've lost crops because of the labor. There's some aspects of agriculture that cannot be done by machines, although we're mechanizing everything we possibly can. We now have drones, we have robots, we've got things that just work all night while we sleep, which is a great thing, but they cost a fortune and they take jobs away. But I agree with you that having to bring in foreign workers, like, the President of the United States has suggested to close the border to Mexico. What would happen as a movie, that was, what if all the Mexicans didn't show up for work? I'm not sure the exact title, but if they didn't show up for work, they wouldn't have any food anymore in the U.S.
No.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff related to this. Can we mechanize everything? Today, you have a 10-hectare greenhouse range. For those of you that can't do hectare, which is in the greenhouse industry, it's 25 acres.
Give or take.
Let's say 25 acres.
Okay.
We've got one person that can run that entire greenhouse, and they only bring in a crew for harvesting.
That's right.
Or for maybe putting up strings or something like that. But one person can do the whole thing because everything can be mechanized. Everything. But what happens if anything in that machinery goes wrong? We're all done in. What if we ever had an electromagnetic pulse from the sun, let's say solar wind coming, and the computers didn't work for a day or a week, all knocked out? We'd be so screwed. Well, let's not talk about the apocalypse now, but like Gaurav, what you said, very important, that yes, we're creating a lot of activity, business activity, trading activity, etc. within agriculture. And agriculture, strangely enough, has become the forefront of new technology. Agriculture always used to be frowned upon as the ugly, boring cousin of all other areas. And in business we do this, we have this new app and this new program and this new computer and everything else, and we have that in the restaurant business and this and that, whatever. And agriculture was always like basically shoveling shit was the usual thing. That's what you did, and pushing the broom.
Now it's
long gone. We're now on the forefront. In Australia, we've got drone flying overhead directing driverless tractors with implements
Yeah.
way out in the outback doing agriculture.
It's crazy.
It's not a person around. There's somebody sitting at a remote office looking at things.
Yeah.
And then again, that has to be repaired, has to be maintained or first put into production by somebody. And this is where we at UFE brought in a new program, again, to fulfill the needs of industry in a job that didn't exist.
Yeah.
And we thankfully, we had the foresight to do it, and that's an automation technician.
That's crazy.
Somebody that looks after that automation.
Yeah.
So the new jobs, they are high-paid jobs.
Always.
They are very high level of intelligence and knowledge,
For sure.
and people are loving this stuff.
Yeah.
I've now taught 3 courses, the introduction to agriculture for these technicians that mostly concern themselves with
Automation.
doohickeys and thingamadoohickeys and jiggies and whatever. And I don't even understand what they're talking about, but I introduce them to the agriculture environment, the dust, the rain, the fertilizer, the acids, the whatever we have in agriculture, so they understand what environment they'll be working in and how the machinery has to function under the conditions we have, sometimes very harsh conditions, let's say, in the greenhouse.
Of course.
And they respond to it beautifully. I'm so proud of them. Some of them now won awards in competition, etc. And that's where it's all about, to stimulate the brain, to stimulate you into loving your job. Because if you don't love your job, what's the point in doing it?
You can't just get out of one day and say you want to do that. You have to have some sort of education to really be technical in that sense.
Yeah. And again, yes, it can
that's
be done
more trades based,
but that's 0.01% of the population.
That's trades.
Well, you're gonna get rid of jobs, but there's always gonna be new things. Like based on history, like there was the revolution that happened in the 1900s, where you had industrial revolution. You lost a bunch of jobs, but those workers became different specialists, and that's what's gonna continue happening, right? Just based on history, that's always happened, and there's going to be more and more technology.
Well, look all the way back to the invention of the steam engine.
Yeah.
All the way to what we have now.
Yeah.
Can you believe that I started my life with a rotary dial phone? You don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And airplanes, that was very unusual to fly. And nowadays you just jump in the airplane and go somewhere really rapidly. To your wedding in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Shall we invite everybody? Anyway, so yes, we keep on evolving.
Yeah.
I wrote an article in Modern Agriculture magazine, which actually came out of, Amir, you were involved in this, in the birthing of that magazine. That still exists, and I write a column every single time in it. And I wrote one article on the science and technology, and nowadays the farm gets run out of a truck remotely by cell phone or pad, iPad or something similar. This is how you can now order a part in China or in Russia from your truck. You can compare prices, order it, and then you don't have to worry about it the rest of the day. You have access to everything.
Essentially.
And the whole time, 24/7.
All of our stuff is ordered off Amazon.
Which again, their job's there.
Increases productivity at the end of the day.
Absolutely, it does increase productivity, and that's why we keep on ratcheting up our standard of living. But unfortunately, you're leaving some people behind, and that's the unfortunate thing, that people that either are unwilling or incapable to follow us into this. I'm from the dinosaur age, but I'm still loving this new technology. Just like right now, we're recording something that many years ago, not so many years ago, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have ever thought about doing this. Social media was not a thing.
Exactly.
And sometimes I think I wish it wasn't, but because there's so much nonsense on social media. Look at the Kardashians; they would have never been so popular if it wasn't for social media. So
Right.
let's do that for agriculture. Let's
Yeah.
make agriculture sexy and interesting.
Tom thinks the
Yeah.
Kardashians are sexy.
Yeah.
We'll cut it on that note. How about
Yeah,
that?
let's do it.
Look, thank you very much, Tom. Really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you
very
for your
much.
good questions.
That's good.
Yeah.
No, we really did dissect organic. We really did dissect education because that was kind of interesting to hear that
Yeah.
side of things. So that's awesome. All right, guys.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. See
In
you
the
guys
morning,
later.
afternoon, or evening.
Yeah, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are in the world. So we'll talk to you later, guys. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.